Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to go on a journey, an economic journey. We're going to see how a country's economy gets built, from the ground up. And to really get it, we'll look at some amazing examples from countries in Africa. Ready to get started? Let's do it.
Okay, so take a look at this. It all starts with a question, really. What you're seeing here is this giant hole in the ground. It's a massive copper mine. But think about it. How does that, this raw stuff dug out of the earth, how does it become a cell phone or a car or even part of a skyscraper? Well, that is the story of an economy at work, and it's exactly the story we're going to explore together.
All right, every good journey needs a map, right? So here's ours. First, we'll look at what countries start with, their natural resources. Then, we'll see how they trade with the world. After that, how they invest to get stronger. We'll also figure out how we measure an economy. And then we'll put it all together with Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa. Should be a great trip.
Okay, first stop on our map, starting with natural resources. This is where it all begins, really. You can think of these as the basic ingredients a country has to work with to build its economy.
So what are these ingredients? Well, different countries have different gifts from nature, Kenya, for example, has this amazing, rich soil that's just perfect for farming. Think coffee and tea. Then you've got Nigeria, which has huge amounts of oil under the ground. South Africa, it's famous for all sorts of minerals like gold, diamonds, and platinum. And that big mine we saw? That's in the DR Congo, a major source of copper. All of these things are the starting points for their economies.
All right, let's head to the next stop on our journey, trading with the world. You see, having these resources is awesome, but it's not the whole story. I mean, you can't build a car just out of oil, right? To get all the other things they need, countries have to go to the world marketplace. They have to trade. But sometimes trading isn't so simple. There are these things called trade barriers. Just imagine you want to trade your sandwich for your friend's apple at lunch, but somebody puts up a big wall between you. That's kind of what a trade barrier is. It can be a special tax, that's called a tariff, that makes stuff from other countries more expensive. Or maybe a limit on how much you can trade, a quota. All these things just make it more difficult for countries to trade with each other. So if there are barriers, why even bother trading? Well, it's because of this really cool idea called comparative advantage. Now I know that sounds like a big, complicated phrase, but the idea is actually super simple. Think about it. Country A is amazing at growing coffee. Country B is amazing at making computers. Should country A try to build a computer factory? Probably not. They should specialize in what they do best, coffee. And country B should specialize in computers. Then they trade. What's the result? Both countries end up with more great coffee and more great computers than if they tried to do everything themselves. It's a win-win.
This diagram here really brings that idea to life. You can see how, when two countries focus on what they're best at and then trade with each other, they both end up in a better spot. They literally create more value for everyone involved just by specializing. This is the engine behind so much of global trade.
So how do you make trading easier? Well, one way is to speak the same language, and I mean the language of money. Think about it. In parts of West and Central Africa, a bunch of countries all use the same money, the same currency. It's called the CFA franc, and because it's linked to the euro, it makes trading with countries in Europe way, way easier. It's like automatically removing one of those trade barriers we talked about. All right, time for the next leg of our journey. So, a country has resources, and it's trading them. That's great. But is that enough to be successful in the long run? Not really. To really grow, an economy needs to get stronger. And it does that by investing in its future. We're talking about investing in two major things: its tools, and even more importantly, its people. So let's talk about tools first. The fancy economic term is capital investment, but don't let that scare you. All it really means is spending money on stuff that helps you make other stuff. It's like, if you have a school project, you could use a regular pair of scissors, right? Or you could invest in one of those cool paper cutters that makes perfect, straight lines every time. It helps you do a better job faster. For a country, this means things like building factories, buying new computers for offices, and making sure there are good roads and ports.
And boom, here's a perfect example of capital investment in the real world. This isn't just a road they're building in Ghana. It's a tool. It's an investment that's going to connect the whole country. It'll help businesses get their products to customers faster, and it'll help people get to their jobs more easily. This is exactly how a country invests in itself to get stronger.
But all the best tools and roads in the world don't mean much without smart people to use them. And that brings us to what might be the most important investment of all, investing in people. This is called human capital. It's all about education, making sure people have the skills they need to do amazing work.
We're talking about everything from doctors and teachers to software engineers and skilled factory workers. Honestly, the more skilled and educated a country's people are, the more that country can grow and create new things. It's like this secret weapon for success.
Okay, so let's recap. We have our natural resources, we're trading with other countries, and we're investing in tools and people. But how do we know if any of this is actually working? How can we tell if an economy is healthy and growing? We need a way to keep score, like in a game. And one of the main ways we keep score is with a number called GDP per capita. Okay, let's break that down. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. That's just the total value of everything a country produces in 1 year. All the cars, all the coffee, all the services, everything. And per capita, that just means per person. So you take that huge GDP number and you divide it by the number of people in the country. It gives you a good snapshot, a rough idea of the country's standard of living, and it lets us compare different economies.
Okay, this is the really cool part. We've learned all these ideas, right? Natural resources, trade, investment, GDP. Now let's see how it all comes together in the real world. We're going to look at Kenya, Nigeria, and South Africa and see their economic journeys in action.
Take a look at these numbers. This chart tells a really interesting story. Let's look at South Africa on the far right. See how it has the highest GDP per capita? Now look at its literacy rate. That's the percentage of people who can read and write. It's also the highest, at 94%. Now look at the other two. See the connection? A higher literacy rate, which is a great way to measure that human capital we talked about, seems to go hand in hand with a stronger economy. It's a pretty powerful hint about how important investing in education really is.
Okay, now let's zoom in on Nigeria. This chart shows us what Nigeria sells to the rest of the world, its exports. And wow, just wow. Look at that giant slice for oil. You add up crude petroleum and petroleum gas, and you're looking at more than 90% of the country's entire exports. What this tells us is that Nigeria's economy is super dependent on this one single natural resource.
So you might be thinking, what's the big deal? They have a lot of oil. Well, here's the catch. This graph shows you the risk. That green line is Nigeria's economy, its GDP. The purple line is the price of oil on the world market. See how they're practically dancing together? When the price of oil goes up, Nigeria's economy does great. But when the price of oil crashes, the entire economy takes a massive hit. Relying so much on one single thing is super risky. It's like being on a roller coaster that you can't control.
Wow. We have covered a lot of ground on our journey today. We've seen how economies get started, how they grow, and how we measure them. So let's pull over for a second and just quickly go over the key takeaways from our trip. All right, here are the big ideas to remember. First, economies get their start with natural resources. Second, trading is a win-win because it lets countries specialize in what they do best. Third, and this one is huge, investing in both tools, which is capital, and people, which is human capital, is the key to real growth. Fourth, we can keep score on an economy's health with numbers like GDP per capita. And last but not least, relying on just one resource can be really, really risky.
And that brings our journey to a close for today. We've seen that building an economy is like putting together a giant, complicated puzzle with resources, trade, and investment. So I want to leave you with one final question to think about. After everything we've talked about, what do you think is the most important ingredient for a country's economic success? Is it having a ton of natural resources? Is it having the most educated people? Or is it something else entirely? It's a great question to think about. Thanks so much for coming along on this trip with me today.